The Skycruiser 2 is a ready-to-fly plane. It basically has all you need to all you got to do is charge up the battery, put batteries in the controller, and you are good to go. I think the price on Amazon, it's a little bit high for what I feel like you get from the airplane, but there isn't very many options, I feel like, as far as just a good beginner FPV aircraft that's ready to fly. So it's, like I said, it's got what you need, but it's definitely lacking in some areas. And when you watch the FPV flight, you'll kind of see it doesn't have the stability control help that you get in some of the better available fixed wing aircraft that are kind of in this range. My main reason for getting it was I just wanted something that I wouldn't stress over while I was flying. It's just the kind of plane that it can take a beating, and it runs off a 2S battery, so that's a little more power, and it's got the pusher prop, which is gonna kind of mitigate a little bit of damage that you would normally take possibly to the prop. The controller, I was kind of impressed by. That, to me, maybe justifies the higher price. I really liked it because you could go in there and it has a digital display, and the display actually gives you a visual representation of any trim adjustments that you may have made. So once you put some trim into it, it'll show on your controller, and then you can come back later and you can power it off, and then the next time you power it on, your trim adjustments are going to be still in the controller, so it saves them for you. So that's a pretty good feature. I have I have really limited experience, honestly, in RC, just coming in as somebody new. So I don't know if that's a common feature for fixed wing aircraft. I know for quads, the most expensive quad I've got actually is a $200 quad, and it has quite a bit more features as far as that goes. But I don't know if maybe all fixed wings planes have the LCD trim display and stuff, but I have to say I think that's definitely in the plus column for this kit. I shouldn't call it a kit. I mean, really, the only assembly you have to do is put the wings in. It's extremely simple. There's nothing to it. So, again, this is it's a good buy, I believe, for beginner people like me who are just kind of really getting into it. But apart from that, yeah, it's ready to fly. It's got what you need. So there really isn't much to go over as far as that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do next is go to the FPV footage and kind of let you make up your own mind if you feel like, just judging from the footage, if this would be a plane you would want to buy and fly. Okay, before I get to the actual FPV flight, I pulled up Google Maps because it has a really useful feature for actually pulling up distance. It measures distance very, very well. So I use that X to mark my position in the flying area. And what I recorded my DVR on was in the pavilion right behind me. And so the image that you're seeing is subject to a little bit of breakup, maybe a little more interference than I actually had when I was flying, because it was just, there were some obstructions. There was the roof, there was a couple trees that I think at some point caused a little more interference than I actually experienced on my own goggles. And it does blue screen at one point, which my goggles don't blue screen. They actually just do the snowy picture. And that lasted for probably a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds. I'm not sure. It's actually recorded, and I've got a time reader on the recording so that you know the total flight time. And I pretty much kept it at full speed the entire time. Now, like I was talking about earlier, Google Maps has this feature that actually lets you measure distance. So what you do is you just right click on a Google Maps image, and if you can draw out a line from point to point, and it's going to give you a measurement. So I flew at max at the end of that concrete walkway there, which is right close. It's like 494, 495 feet, 494, yeah. But it is very close to 500 feet, and I still had control. So I think it's accurate to say that it's at least got a 500-foot range, which that's almost 2 football fields. Yeah, pretty close to 2 football fields. So just a lot of people use different ways to find range. I didn't try to push it past its possible operating range, but I felt like it was useful to get as accurate of a reading as I could on the operable range. And I have to say, this park, it's excellent. It's got lots of open space, but then it has lots of landmarks, and the trees kind of form a boundary so that you don't fly over anybody's houses. Now, the FPV footage that I took, I like watching DVR because it lets you kind of critique your flight. You pick up on some stuff that you may not have caught on to while you were flying. And I think mostly what I see from this footage is, I think the plane isn't very steady in flight. It kind of, it doesn't have any kind of stability control, which the better planes do. And there is actually other planes that you can get in roughly in this price range, usually a little bit more, but we're talking about going from 89, 90 bucks up to 120, 130. So it's kind of up to you. But I do find I think if you look around more, I think you can find more stable planes. But just overall, I'm happy flying this plane because there's a lot less stress. You don't have to worry so much like, oh no, if I crash, I'm out a ton of money. You don't have that feeling kind of hanging over your head. So you can kind of relax and you can take a few chances and kind of push yourself and have a little more fun. I feel like when you're flying the cheaper planes, I think some of the pro guys, the guys who've been in the hobby business for a long time, and it seems like I shouldn't say hobby business. I just in the hobby itself for a long time. They've moved so far up the chain that they're risking hundreds and hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands of dollars every time they fly. And I don't know, maybe that's fun for them. I don't know. I guess it is if they keep doing it. But for me, I kind of like staying in a more manageable budget range and not feeling like, oh no, I'm going to be out a lot of money if I crash. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add to this footage right here. The timer is pretty handy because it lets you know what kind of flight time this plane gets. And I had it at about 100% full throttle the whole time, so you're going to know roughly what you can expect as far as flight time out of the stock battery. There are bigger batteries in terms of capacity and flight time that you can get. Of course, there's a trade-off; they're going to be heavier, but yeah, I would definitely say if you want to buy this plane, definitely look into getting a couple of backup batteries, and just to increase your flight time. Because the stock battery, it's okay, but it would sure be nice if you could just get a little more flight time out of it. I would say wind speed was probably about around somewhere between 5 and 10 miles per hour. There were some gusts. It was a fairly calm day. Part of my reason for getting this glider, or I shouldn't say glider, but it's a little bit of a glider. But part of my reason for getting this was because of the extra power, which I may have mentioned earlier, because I just want to be able to fight the wind a little bit. And this plane does okay. I mean, I think I haven't yet flown it on a day where there was just too much wind, but February is probably the worst time on average where I live to try and get some calm, clear days for flying, because it's historically a very windy month or time of year where I live, and I imagine this for most people in the United States. But this park is just, I love it. I couldn't ask for a better place. I mean, there's tons of room. Hardly anybody comes out here. It's just kind of, it's yours. Especially if you can do it like I flew. This flight was around noon on a weekday. I was off work and it was just great. So I think if I was going to recommend anybody to just get into, if you want to fly fixed wing, because it's definitely, to me, more relaxing over flying a quadcopter. I think the quads are, once you get over the initial learning phase, I think it's tougher overall than flying a fixed wing. Obviously, you have that much more maneuverability, but I have a $200 quad. It's a Walkera Rodeo 150, and it's a very nice quad. but you have to swap the batteries out every 5 minutes. And this flight isn't much longer, but at least you can go back and you can put a heavier battery in it and probably increase your flight time by quite a bit. I'll find out pretty soon when I get more batteries in. But I think for fixed wing, a big part of the appeal is the longer flight times you can get. It's just up to you and what kind of batteries you're willing to buy and the mods you're willing to do on it. I mean, kind of what I would like to do on this plane is try and figure out if I can move the prop to the front of the plane. I'm pretty new to RC. I don't know if I can do it. I know that spinning in the wrong direction for a front-mounted prop, I would have to reverse the spinning direction. But there's not really much to it besides that. I guess you would have to make sure that you orient the angle of the prop, of the engine too, or motor. But I think overall it would probably be not too big of a deal. I don't know, the plane's not made for it, but I would really prefer to have the prop in front. I don't mind a little bit of blur in front of me from the prop, because to me it's really not a deal breaker. I don't really mind it. And from what I've heard, the tractor prop, which is what's a normal, most props, are positioned to the front of the plane, and by tractor that's to imply, I guess, that it's pulling rather than pushing the plane. I've heard they're more efficient. I'm not 100% sure how much more efficient it would be. I don't have a clue actually, but I imagine it would probably handle a little bit better, just because I feel like this is awfully tail heavy. So I just wonder if I put the prop up front, if it would handle better. Hopefully I'll get to find out. So yeah, I'm flying pretty conservatively. I don't fly as, I guess, conventionally as I see other RC pilots flying, and that's mainly because I fly to have fun. I fly to take sharp turns, do some maneuvers. It's the closest I'll ever get to real flying, because it just it's the only way I'm going to get anywhere near flying any kind of aircraft. So I just like to have a little excitement when I'm flying, but not in a way that I'm like endangering the plane or anybody around me. It's more just seeing what I can do up in the air. I mean, obviously I would love to do more proximity flying. I think this plane, it's a bit limited in that sense because of the controls, the lack of stability. It's lightweight. I think you need more power and more weight. Okay, so now for my final review. I've flown it probably about a dozen times now, so I have a fair amount of experience with this plane. The best feature about it, I would say by far, is it's easy to fly. If you've ever played a arcade game, PC flight game, game on your Xbox or PlayStation, in any game involving flight, you have no problem jumping into this right away, especially if you're an FPV. I feel like that's by far the best way to fly it. It's a tough plane. I've crashed it just about every time I've flown it, and that's really just been in landings. It's not because due to a failure of the plane itself. It's just because my landing skills are a little lacking right now. But there are no broken parts on the plane yet. I've bent the nose just a little bit, but apart from that, I mean, it's held up very, very well, I have to say. And again, it's really good for FPV. So I would definitely, if you plan on buying this plane, just go ahead and get an FPV set up as well. Get some goggles and a cheap little FPV camera, and I guarantee, especially if you're new to this, you're going to have a lot of fun flying it. I have so far. I've really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, those are the positives to it, and now I got to get to the negatives. Okay, time for negatives and what I feel like could be improved on, and what I didn't like so much about the Skycruiser 2. Okay, first off, stability. I think if you watch the footage, you could see that stability was a little bit of an issue. I felt like just a little bit too much correcting, and it's really the result of not having any type of a stability control system built into the receiver. So yeah, I definitely have to say that's a pretty big issue for that plane. Above all else, I would say that's the biggest problem. Flight time. I think the flight time is better, at least compared to quadcopters. I still feel like, though, they should have put in a better battery as far as the capacity, the milliamps per hour. I feel like you should at least get probably around a 12-minute flight time. And if that means putting in 2 batteries or in the part of the kit, or just putting in a longer life battery, one of the two, because it's inevitable. Every time you buy one of these things, the stock battery isn't. It's just enough to get your feet wet, but it's really not enough. So that's not really the Sky Cruiser 2 or Andromeda's really fault too much there. It's just it's a bigger problem just as far as the entire RC hobby goes. The pusher prop, I'm not really a big fan of it. I feel like it's not really necessary when the blades on this prop are foldable. So the blades are already fold. They're built to be able to handle impact. So if you're going to put foldable blades on a plane, why make it a pusher? Why not just put it in the nose and get more flight time out of it? So I'm not too big of a fan of the pusher prop. It does work, but I feel like it does negatively impact the control of the aircraft and the flight time on it. And also, finally, no ailerons. I love doing barrel rolls, and I feel like by not having ailerons, if I can say it right, it kind of takes away from this airplane, because I've looked at some other airplanes pretty close to this airplane's price range, and a lot of them can do barrel rolls. Now maybe you can, and I'm not good enough yet, but so far I found that I haven't been able to do it. So yeah, that's it for the negatives. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give the Andromeda Sky Cruiser 2 an 8. I would recommend it for newer pilots. Anybody who has any experience at all, and maybe even already owns a few RC planes, probably don't need to check it out. But for new people, especially for anybody who's looking to do a little FPV and for the first time maybe, I can definitely recommend this plane. Thanks for watching.